So good evening. Let's take the prayer and begin. Master of all worlds, highest power, merciful parent of compassion, your presence
eternal one, source of strength for us,
as you have been
for our ancestors.
Very humbly
acknowledge you.
What are we?
What are we?
What is our life?
That you done such great kindness to us.
Therefore, place
our appeals before you,
so that you may
forgive and absolve us all our faults and failings.
That our faults
never become barriers between us and you.
And may be your desire
to prepare our hearts to feel awe and love for you. May you listen to these words of ours.
And may you open our
humble hearts
to the
mysteries of your Torah.
May this our study be a source of
pleasure before your throne of glory, like sweet incense.
May you shower down
upon us the light of our soul's source,
all the
ways by which we define ourselves.
May the sparks of
your holy servants, to whom you have revealed these words to the world,
shine
and sparkle. May their merit, ancestors' merit, their Torah, their innocence and their holiness, and for us,
prevent us from stumbling
these words.
In their merit,
your eyes illumine what we study, as in the saying of the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes that I might gaze at the wonders of your Torah. May the words of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart be acceptable to you, Rock, my Redeemer. Who grants wisdom from the Eternal's mouth, that knowledge and understanding issue forth.
Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na na na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Oh na na na. Na 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 na. Oh na na na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. 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 Na na la 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 la. I la la I la 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 la. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. na 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 na. Na na na. Na 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 na. Oh na na na. Oh na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. We're going to continue from page 370. I think that's where we are, right? Good. And I think we were in the middle of the we were in the paragraph, the next to last paragraph on that page. This supernal light extended further, and we were talking about that a little bit. I just want to back up a little bit and start from there and then go forward. What we have is, again, as the Zohar does in many places, it creates imagery that tell us how reality has unfolded out of God. And it uses different kinds of images in different places. And here we started at the top, toward the top of the page, the four lines from the top: speech and spirit as one. We have this idea of the gathering of the force of creativity to become more and more specific, so that from breath and from spirit in a vague kind of way, in a general open-ended kind of way, speech is produced. That means specific expression, and that is the way that the world itself can be understood, as there's this kind of inchoate, mysterious desire. We talked about that. That was, I think, the last thing that we mentioned. That desire of creativity, which has no words yet. It's inexpressible, but it's there, and you can feel it, and God feels it, so to speak. And then it becomes delineated, and it becomes specific, and the desire takes shape and form in different kinds of ways. So that's what we have being described by the Zohar, and the Zohar then talks about it as that these desires of God can be then the metaphor shifts over to the metaphor of life, of light, right? The imagery of light. And the lights are constantly from a tiny little breakthrough kind of light, and the lights, sort of like in a chain reaction, more and more lights are created. And then we have this paragraph, that's the last big paragraph on the page, that the supernal light, this beginning engendering point of light, spreads out and moves forward to create more, and finally fashions an uman, right? Not the town in Ukraine, but an artisan, and that is a light that does not shine, right? There's a light. Finally, the light shines forth, and then it finally creates this paradoxical light, a light that does not shine forth, but rather collects the lights that have been shining forth, masters them, musters them, brings them all together, and then starts dispensing those lights, fashioning the lower world, right? That's the first line. And of course, that we've gotten used to it in other places. That's one way that the Zohar also uses the imagery to describe the difference between the active creative energies of God, which are valenced as male, and then the light that does not have its own light, but that simply benefits and takes in the light and contains the light, that's the feminine, right? That's valenced as the female, right? The receptor, the passive, not active shining light, but the reflector, like the moon, that reflects the light of the sun, but it doesn't generate energy in and of itself. Okay, so
Rabbi, I have a question.
Who said that? Yeah, Len, how are you?
So where it says that this all started when God wanted to create, he started with a single concealed light. Does this relate to the idea of Or Haganuz? Is that a concept that they're referring to here? And if so, could you explain more about what Or Haganuz is? I've always been confused about that.
So I don't think that we're going to get to it too much tonight. The Or Haganuz means the hidden light. Or is light, Ganuz is hidden or stashed away. We know the word Geniza, right? A Geniza is a place that when we have worn out pages with God's name on it, it has to be put away. It can't be thrown away into the garbage. It has to be, treasured and then put away someplace. Of course, there's that book about the Cairo Geniza called Sacred Trash. Right, that kind of paradoxical idea, right? Because the Geniza in Cairo in the end was a trash heap. It wasn't exactly like they never got around to burying everything. It was just like waiting, and thankfully for us, they were waiting around for it to be discovered. So that may sound totally irrelevant, but it's not irrelevant to the Or Haganuz. The Or Haganuz is a reference to a kind of post facto state of the originary light. After the originary light did its work and started, ramifying and creating the world, so then there's the question, so where is it? Where is that originary light? And that the answer is at first in the Midrash, and then the Zohar takes it and runs with it, and then the Lurianic traditions run with it even more. And the answer is that originary light has been stashed away. Because that originary light is not the physical material kinds of light energy that we know. So if that was the originary, right, the force that is the beginning of all that is, it didn't die out, right? We're not talking about, is the myth of the kings that die out, but this living force of God is what keeps everything going, is what keeps us here at this very moment. So we're connected to that light. So where is it? The answer is it's Ganuz. It's hidden. It's still there, but it's concealed. And it will become unconcealed in one of two ways. From a historical unfolding of redemption and from the efforts of people like Rashbi and those who follow Rashbi, who try to uncover those concealed lights that are hidden, to most people's experience. So that's for tonight. That's going to be what all I'm going to say about the Or Haganuz. But it's what I say post facto. It's because it's after we think about this original hidden light bursting forth, and once it burst forth and that concealment was taken away, the Or Haganuz concept is, but then it's still reinstated. It still comes back, but here I'll use a rough analogy to our Torah reading. you can't go home again, right? Noach, the Torah reading that we have for this Shabbos, is in many, many ways, close readers of the Torah can follow how so much of Noach is a recapitulation of the creation story that we had last week in Breshit. And it is a new creation story because the whole world is destroyed except for Noach, right? So in that sense, Noach is the second Adam, or the third Adam, if you want to take two stories of Adam in the beginning. So Noach is the new Adam, and the world that he steps out of the ark into, out of that concealment and into the light, that's a whole new creation story in a certain way. But you can't go back again. It's a new creation story. It can't be the same, because the big difference between the first creation story and this creation story is that this creation story is preceded by that creation story, and the first creation story isn't. So the idea of having a process that precedes, a history, a consciousness, a memory, take that not just as an intellectual or an emotional factor, but take it as an ontological factor. So the Ora Ganuz is ontologically a kind of an originary light with a history, while the first originary light had no history. So, and that's what's concealed. So, all right, so now let's go back over to here, because here we have something, it's all connected, right? The next line is also intriguing. And maybe we'll start reading, and then I'll be able, if I have a reader that I can interrupt, then we'll be able to be back on track. So I wonder if there's anybody that wants to read the text.
Can you have a reader that you can't interrupt? Would you tolerate such a thing?
I have a big problem with that. I know. So I have to go back into therapy about this. What can I say? So
Where
are
would
you
you
ready?
like me to begin?
So start from that paragraph. This supernal light extended. You got that?
Yep.
Thank you.
This supernal light extended further, fashioning an artisan, a light that does not shine, fashioning the lower world. Being a light that does not shine, it yearns to join above and yearns to join below. And by joining below, it joins illuminatingly the juncture above. This light that does not shine, through joining above, generated all forces and camps of many kinds, as is written. O Yud-He Vav-He, how manifold are your works. In wisdom, you have made them all. The earth is full of your creatures.
Good. See, I didn't interrupt you too much. Look at that.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So being a light that does not shine, it yearns. It yearns to join above and below. Okay, so this is very significant. We talked about the idea that this is the root of creation itself, is this yearning, this desire. And now, in a certain sense, the circle is closed, but not really closed. It can't be closed once it starts. The circle of yearning culminates in this aspect of divinity that is saturated with yearning, right? She wants to be connected, unified, united. She wants to commune, to couple with her originary source, because that's where she derives all of her vitality from. That's where she derives all of her life from, right? But she's been endowed with all of these treasures to dispense them into the world. So she wants to do that as well. And then, of course, by pouring out life into this world, then the world that she pours life into will also yearn to get back to its originary source, which is her, which is she. And that pouring back into her then gets transferred back up into her higher divine lover. So this is this back and forth, all motivated, all moved, right? Activated by this yearning. So as a result, in order for her to be able to unite once more above, she can't come back to her lover without pouring forth all of that, what her lover has originally given to her, out into the lower world. Right? If she doesn't pour out what she has in the lower world, then she's betraying her very essence. So she has to pour it out. Once she pours it out, then the feedback, so to speak, will be able to bring her back into coming back to her beloved and be full of that sense of accomplishment, that sense of love, and that replenishment that will come out of the bouncing back, the reflecting back of the lower world back into the higher world. So the more she can enrich this world, the more she will be able to unite lovingly with her beloved source of life. Therefore, right, Marabu Ma'asecha Hashem, right? How manifold are your works? You create so much biodiversity and so much, all kinds of other kinds of diversity, all kinds of amazing kinds of reality, aspects of reality. All of that is being churned out lovingly, passionately by this artisan, by this divine final stage that interacts with creating a world, with fashioning the lower world, right? So it's not stingy, right? It can't be stingy because it's all about this passion. So it's pouring it out, it's generating, and it's generating not just muchness, but veryness, right? A lot of nesses, right? The myriad kinds of possibilities that the world is made out of. The earth is full of your creatures or your creations. Okay. So everything on earth.
Everything on earth corresponds above. Even the tiniest thing in the world depends upon another supernal thing appointed over it.
Okay, so this follows from what we were just saying. Therefore, everything in the world that we have any kind of apprehension of, everything that's in this world, since it's rooted, it derives, it takes its very life from above, everything corresponds to what's above, right? It's all been planted already ahead of time above. It can't be any other way. So everything that we see when we go, oh, how manifold are your works, all of the things that we see below are in some way a correspondence, a reflection of what is above. There's some quality, there's some aspect of being that is a fly, that is a green pea, that is an ocean, that is a sky, that is a little child. All of the things that we can possibly contemplate, examine, take note of, every single one of those physical, material kinds of things, they are all the result of a refracting of something from above in some kind of way. right? And that's not always obvious. It's not simply mirror images. There's a transformation. It's very different, right? The second story can't be the same as the first story, right? But it's nevertheless in some way a recapitulation and a reliving of what is above down below. And of course, that's part of what the Zohar is constantly working with as it sees everything in all of these biblical stories. Everything that we've been reading has been saturated with this idea of seeing how Abraham is really some divine, aspect. How all of these stories reflect certain processes and so on. So these are inherent perceptions in everything that the Zohar is doing. So even the tiniest thing in this world depends on something above it. Does he have it in the note? Yeah. Look at 415.
Even the tiniest thing in this world depends upon another. Rabbi Shimon said,
Yeah, that's our Rabbi Shimon.
you cannot find a single blade of grass below that does not have a constellation in the sky striking it and telling it grow.
Okay, so that's one reading. There are other readings that every blade of glass has an angel, an agent from on high, right? A constellation, a heavenly force that is pushing it, nudging it, striking it, and going, no, grow a little bit. Come on, start growing. Len, yeah.
Yeah, isn't there a song which is attributed to Reb Nachman of Breslov that every blade of grass has a song? I think Naomi Shemer based a modern song based on the tradition of Reb Nachman called Shirat Asavim,
Right.
The Song of the Grasses.
Right. So that's this idea that the whole world is animate, right? And that actually doesn't have to come from this particular midrash. That's what half the Psalms are about, right? Hashamayim esaprim kavodel, right? That the heavens, the skies speak of God's glory, right? They say this, right? That all of the trees sing to God. You know, the Friday night Kabbalat Shabbat Psalms are each one of them is a hymn to how the world is full of singing to God. So it's a very ancient idea. And Rav Nachman's, teaching, and then the song that was created, beautiful, all good stuff. What this is saying, though, is it's flipping it around, and for the purpose of the Zohar, it's very important, and saying there is a kind of an urging from above to push the lower world to sing, to push the lower world to grow, to push the lower world to be what it is, right? There's a celestial force, a constellation, a mazel, an angel. Something is urging each blade of grass to grow. So it's not simply it was planted literally. The grass is planted with this life force, with this vitality, and then it just does what it does. But it's continuously in dialogue, or it's in some kind of continuous communication with above. And that's the higher forces saying, come on, come on. And it's urging and rooting for the world to grow. In another part of the Zohar, it makes it very, very clear, to come back to the theme we had a little bit at the end of last time and at the beginning of this time. That is the desire. That's the expression of desire. That supernal force saying, come on, blade of grass, grow, make it, be you. That's not simply a commandment, an edict. by divine fiat, you must grow. It's with what the text says, tiyufta. It's a with an aleph, right? It's a teavon. It's an appetite. It's a yearning. It's a desire. So I want you to grow. I want you to be full. So that desire is imbued into the world below. Okay, so even the tiniest thing. So for when
this one below is aroused, the one appointed above it is aroused, since all is interlinked.
Right, so that's the circle. The circle of desire feeds itself, right? The arousal is, there's a little push from above, then the song starts being sung and it gets stronger and stronger from below. And then that becomes inspirational, literally above. And then there's more love and life showered back. You can't create, this is one of is how many zillions of stories are out there about how love withers when it's not expressed, when it's not shared. How many young people or people, even when they get older and they reminisce about their youth, and they go, I never heard from my parent that they loved me. I know they loved me, but they never told me they loved me. This is this idea that the love has to come out. It has to be aroused. It has to be expressed, and then it can grow. Otherwise, maybe it'll be there, but it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle for it to survive. It's going to be a struggle for it to thrive. In this week's Torah Sparks, I made this point as a possible explanation. Why does Noah save the world? The whole world is rotten to the core. God says this is actually essential to human nature, to be rotten to the core. And then there's this one guy, Noah, who's a tzaddik, who's righteous. What happened? Forget about how he sustains it and how does he, and how righteous he really is and all of those arguments. That's not important. In the end, bottom line, he saves the world. Right? How did that happen? How did he be the one exception? And one possible answer is because the way the Torah tells the story, he is the one exception to the way that the story is put forth of how parents raise their children. There's a genealogical list, right? There are 10 generations from Adam to Noah. So one generation after another, it says, so this person lived, 500 years and begat so-and-so. Remember that movie? What was that? The Inherit the Wind, right? When Spencer Tracy, attacks Frederick March. Anybody know what I'm talking about? So no, this was the Scopes trial. That there were people that were against teaching evolution. So because it's against the Bible. And, we're coming back to that in our country already, as we speak. So there was a play and then there was a movie about, because it really happened. And Clarence Darrow was he defended a teacher who was teaching evolution, and the prosecutor was William Jennings Bryan. Right, so Frederick March played William Jennings Bryan, and Spencer Tracy played Clarence Darrow. And he calls, this was the big dramatic thing. He calls William Jennings Bryan up to the stand, and he's a fundamentalist, very, very devoted fundamentalist Christian, and he says the Bible is exactly what it says, and it's inerrant, and that's the way it is. And so Spencer Tracy takes this text, and he goes, so Methuselah lived 500 years and he begat Lemech, right? And he says, where's all this begatting coming from? Are there any women around? Are there any, so it's like he makes fun of the way that the text leaves out some, pretty important, functional stuff. But what the text also leaves out is it doesn't say, and so lived 500 years and begat a son, and he called his son so-and-so. Let's forget about the women for a second, and let's just go through the biblical way that you have it. You have it again and again and again. When the children are born, then they're born, and then the parent gives them a name. So you go through these 10 generations, nobody is described as being born that way. Finally, when we get to Noah, I think so. Can't believe that I have to look this up. But when we get to Noah, this is all at the end of Bereshis, right? So, so it goes like this. This is verse 28, chapter 5. So after Methuselah begets Vayoled et Lamech, right? He makes Lamech be born somehow or other, right? We're supposed to fill in the blanks ourselves. So then Vayechi Lemech shtayim u'shmonim shana, and then Lemech lived um'at shana, 280 and 100 years. And then it says Vayoled, and he begat. And what it should say is Vayoled et Noach, and he begat Noah. That's what we've done already 9 times. No, it finally says Vayoled ben, and he begat a son. Vayikra et shemo Noach, and he called his name Noah, Lemor, saying, Ze yenachamenu mima'aseinu umeitzvon yadeinu min ha'adama asher erara Hashem. This little pisher is going to give us comfort and is going to finally save us from all of the sadness of our lives, all of the futility of the work of our hands, from this earth that has been cursed by God. This little nobody, this little baby, I'm calling him Noach because this little baby is going to save the day. So that expression, he's the only person in the whole story up to now who's had a parent express to them what they hope for them and how much they cherish them. This loving embrace is given to Noah and to nobody else. And then Noah becomes a righteous person and saves the world. A coincidence? I don't know, you decide. So that's what is happening here as well. The whole world is the world goes around from this yearning, desire, and loving. Okay. Here we go. Come and see.
Come and see. What is written? Give me some of your son's mandrakes.
Okay, so this is now finally, after this whole philosophical, psychological abstractions about life, we finally get back down to the nitty-gritty, right? We started back on page 369. In the days of wheat harvest, Reuven went and found mandrakes in the field, right? Vayimsa dudaim basadeh. So now we're following this story. So what happens is that Rachel, do we have the whole thing? No, he just tells you, right? Rachel asks, so Reuven is Leah's firstborn. Reuven finds these mandrakes in the field, and he comes and he gives a present to his mommy. He gives a present to his mom, and he presents the mandrakes as a special nice gift for his mother. He's very, we can imagine, he's a kid, he's very proud. When kids give gifts to their parents, especially like this kind of thing of giving a gift to your mom, there's so much love to it. There's so much also hope that the mom will then say, oh, you're my sweetie pie, you're the best, I'm gonna, never forget this. I'm gonna put this up on the mantelpiece. Well, it'll be there always, right? This is, what Reuven is giving to his mother. What happens now? Rachel, right, the other sister, says to Leah, give me some of your son's mandrakes. So this, and then what happens as a result of this? Leah says, we have well, we're gonna, let's read the I don't know how to, I don't know, it's rich here. Leah goes, what are you doing? You want to take away my son's mandrakes? My son gives me a present and you want it? He didn't give you the mandrakes, he gave me the mandrakes. And Rachel says, I'll make a deal. I'll make a deal. Tonight, Jacob is supposed to be visiting me in my tent. You give me the mandrakes, I'll give you Jacob. Right? And that's what happens. Right? And then Jacob comes back. Leah comes out to greet him, and because Jacob knows he's supposed to go into Rachel's tent. He's looking forward to it. Rachel is the one he loves. And Leah says, I have rented you for tonight. Sachor scharticha. I've paid the rental fee to have you for tonight. And he sleeps with her that night. Okay, so and as a result, Yisachar is born. Right, so it's a very, very provocative story. There's a tremendous amount of human, what can I say? Real human stuff going on here. And the Zohar is going to work on that human stuff and, of course, transform it into some kind of spiritual stuff as well. But that's how it's beginning, right? The introduction is, let's look at even the littlest thing in the physical world. Let's see how it might be a reflection, a connection to higher realms. Okay, come and see. Okay, so let's start one more time. Come and see.
Come and see. Come and see what is written. Give me some of your son's mandrakes. It wasn't the mandrakes that caused Rachel to give birth. Rather, the Blessed Holy One brought this about by means of those mandrakes, so that Issachar would issue, embracing Torah more firmly than all those tribes.
Okay, so let's stop for a second and let's understand again what's going on in terms of the transactions. Rachel wants the mandrakes. Leah is appalled, she's insulted, but then Rachel makes her an offer she can't refuse. But that simply highlights, why is this so important for Rachel? What's the big deal with the mandrakes? So we could imagine that Rachel was superstitious, or had this silly idea that if she eats the mandrakes, she'll become fertile. She hasn't had any children, right? And the mandrakes have this kind of aphrodisiac, supposedly, property. So what are mandrakes? So, okay, Len's going to tell us.
No, but even the name Dudaim tells you that it has erotic potency because the root is dud, which means love or lover, lecha dodi, come my beloved. So it's right there in the name of it. There's nothing arcane that has to be ferreted out about what mandrakes are. Right.
So, well, except we really want to know what they are. But also, and what's the story? What's the song? How does it? Right? Something like that. So, so that's the dudaim. Dudaim are some kind of plant root kind of thing that look like little men. They look like they have like a little head and then a little body and two legs. Is it? Is that what it's called? Is ginseng what it's translated into? Mandrakes? What can I do? All right, that's why Google was invented. So you can get a picture, but that's my image from what I remember. And it's like a little man, and the idea was, it's a little bit like a voodoo kind of thing, right? That by consuming that, you'll be able to then give forth a little man. You'll be able to, have, your little man love you, or be with you, and that it'll succeed. Of course, an aphrodisiac is not the same thing as there it is. See, so they look like that. Thank you, Craig. There you go. Did everybody see that? Just like I said. Okay.
Where is Craig showing it?
On his screen.
Oh,
Can't you see Craig's screen?
I have to go look for it.
It's the one there. See, there's pictures of plants. There's Craig. This is the way he looks like in real life. You see him?
Oh God, I can't find him.
You have to put gallery view.
I did. I only get
Right.
that.
We're
right,
all on
there's-
one screen. We're all on one screen.
Okay. Well, not my computer. It makes two screens.
Out of 12 people.
Scroll down or scroll up.
I'm trying. I got, all right, Craig, show it. Where is it? I see Craig.
Come on, Greg. You got to go one more time. Sorry.
That's all right. I'm trying to pull it up here again. Let me just see if I can increase it.
Come on,
Well,
Doug.
right
The
now,
show
it-
before was
it's-
perfect. That was perfect.
yeah, before it was good. Hold on. For
the
some
three
reason,
of them
thanks to Google. Hang on. Well, this is the best I can. Oh, here. Wait. Here we go.
Go to your history.
Here we go. Yeah.
Yeah. There you
Yeah.
go. So,
There we are.
see?
Right. Oh, yeah. I've seen those.
Good. All right.
That's creepy. That is really creepy.
So, all right. So the question is, why does Rachel want him? Why is she so desperate that she wants to even trade away her husband for this? The answer is that clearly she thinks that this is android images are hallucinogenic. Ooh, interesting. So she thinks that this is going to help her have a child. So now that's what the Zohar says. It wasn't the mandrakes that caused Rachel to give birth. Don't mistake what's below for what's above. Everything that's below is connected to above. The Holy Blessed One brought this about by means of those mandrakes. God was using the mandrakes to accomplish God's purpose. But now the Zohar throws us a curveball, right? Because the way we should follow from this is the mandrakes are going to help Rachel give birth, and Rachel gives birth to Joseph, right? So that would be God made Rachel give birth by means of the mandrakes, and Rachel gave birth so that Joseph should be born. But that's not what the sentence goes on to say. It makes a sharp turn and comes back to Leah and say all of this actually was in order to make it possible for Yisachar to be born. Yisachar was the child that was born from that union that night when Jacob also had to take a sharp turn. Instead of going to Rachel, he went to Leah. He slept with Leah. Leah conceives and has Yisachar. And notice that the word Yisachar, Sachar, has that same thing that she said before to Jacob. I rented you out. Sachor scharticha. Although she says something else when she announces what the name is. Again, coming back to the idea, when you name people, the parent talks about their hopes for the child. So anyway, back to here. So the Zohar says the plan, Rachel thinks that she's doing a big deal, right? Rachel thinks that she's maneuvering and manipulating the situation so that she'll be able to get kids. But actually, it was in order for her to be fooled into giving up that night for Jacob to go to Leah? Because God wanted Yisachar to be born. It was important for Yisachar to be born. Why Yisachar? What's so good about Yisachar? So the answer is because he embraced Torah more firmly than all those tribes. Even though all of the 12 tribes of Jacob are all holy people and they all, constitute Knesset Yisrael, the whole, collective body of the Jewish people. Nevertheless, it's not Reuven, and it's not even Yehuda, and it's not even Levi, who becomes the Levite tribe, right? Who is the tribe that the Zohar, who is the tribe that the Zohar identifies through rabbinic understanding as well, as the most devoted Torah scholars? Yisachar. According to rabbinic understanding, Yisachar and Zevulun had a brotherly deal. Zevulun, Chov Yamim Yishkon, he would go out and he would do business, and he would then pay so that Yisachar wouldn't have to go to work, and Yisachar would just be able to sit and learn Torah all day long. So this is this idea that we have even to this very, very day, that the active, wealthier people should support the other people who can then not have to be distracted by petty concerns, and instead learn Torah. So before we get to the question about why isn't anybody named Yisachar, we should just notice that again, there's this complicated, interplays back and forth between the upper world and the lower world, the spiritual world and the physical world. The idea that Yisachar is going to be the tribe, the community, the people, the humans that are going to not have to dirty their hands in this physical world, so that they can actually be above it and be part of this whole transcendent spiritual Torah way of life. That doesn't necessarily follow from what the Zohar was saying before. Look at how amazing the world is. Look at how much the world is full of God's presence. You could make the argument the other way. So let's all go into the world. Let's go into the physical world, and let's, uncover the magnificence of God in every blade of grass, in every, nano particle of astrophysics or whatever. Maimonides sort of says that, right? He says, you want to learn how to love God? Study physics. So this is one way to do it, but it has to come back.
Can you understand any of this?
Any of what?
Sorry.
Was that directed to somebody?
No, I'm sorry. That was a.
To your parrot? To your cat?
No, I got my dog.
Your dog. The dogs know a lot more than we do. They understand much more than we do. So back to this. So there's this constant ambivalent flipping back and forth between appreciating this world, but you can't appreciate this world except through the lens of the divine spiritual origin of the world. And therefore, if a person can cut to the chase and go straight into that, as Yisachar would, so that's wonderful. But now again, the dynamic is this back and forth, that God is using our own puny physical agendas and perceptions in order to create a more perfect union. How's that for a phrase? Yeah, so hardly anybody is named Yisachar nowadays, is a comment. Yeah, what can I tell you? It's here and there, but not much. Among Hasidim, it's a little bit of a name, because there's one of the and for some Hasidim, they actually mispronounce the name on purpose, and they call it Yisachar.
there's a classic Hasidic sefer, beautiful sefer called the Bnei Yisachar, and it's about it's Hasidic Torah and all of the holidays and Shabbos and so on. But there's a guy in Chovevei, Rabbi Yisachar Katz. So there he is. He's got the name. He's not a nobody. So there. So somebody's got it. But yes, not certain names. Just they have their day and then they go. I mean, I can't think of it's a whole mystery. Which names become names and which names don't become names. I don't know. When's the last time somebody named their kid Stacy? Right. So what does Len say? Len says they don't have to worry about the English. You're right, especially the ch. Right. They don't have to worry about that ch stuff. Okay. So Yisachar is the person who is holding on to the Torah, and that's what God now wants to create. God wants to. It's that God just can't do it. God has to use these manipulations that human beings are engaged in to somehow find the opening of where he can finally get this human being to be born, who will be this, devotee to the Torah. God can't just, snap God's fingers, so to speak, and say, okay, I'm going to have one of these kids be, a great Torah devotee. All right. Now let's see what's the rest of the story. For Rachel embraced
Jacob and wouldn't let him go to Leah, as is written. Is your taking my husband a small thing? And then he may lie with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes. These ushered Issachar into the world, who wafted fragrance of Torah into the presence of the Blessed Holy One. As is written, the mandrakes give forth fragrance.
Okay, so let's stop for a second. And for all of the Zohar's, abstruse, abstract theology and philosophy stuff, the Zohar is also just a really wonderful, very sharp reader of the Torah. So the Zohar sees this verse that Leah says, is it a small thing, a nothing, that you have taken my husband, that now you also want to take the mandrakes, right? And the Zohar says, what is Leah actually saying? What is Leah complaining about? So the Zohar extrapolates, for Rachel embraced Jacob and wouldn't let him go to Leah. Right? What is going on here with this dealing, this wheeling and dealing? That Leah has to somehow give up something so precious, her son, her firstborn son's special gift to her, in order to be able to get Jacob to sleep with her that night? So what do you mean? So in another 2 nights or in another week, Jacob wasn't going to take turns and go sleep with Leah? What does she have to buy him for? What does she have to rent him for? So the Zohar makes a very perceptive point. Rachel is holding on to Jacob, and at least from Leah's perspective, she doesn't feel that she ever gets to be with Jacob. It's Rachel, Rachel, Rachel all the time. And Rachel is not letting go. Now, what this is going to do is prevent Yisachar from being born. Right? I mean, again, what do we need the mandrake stuff for? So next week, when Jacob finally sleeps with Leah, she'll conceive and have Yisachar. So the Zohar is saying, think about it for a second. Leah is so desperate here because she thinks that she's actually not going to get that chance. She thinks that that Rachel has this proprietary monopoly. She's not going to let Jacob go to her. So this is, on a human, melodramatic soap opera kind of level, pretty intriguing, right? But it's also ironic, right? Because after all, Rachel is not nobody, right? Rachel is the mother of the world. She's Jacob's beloved. Jacob is a divine force, and Rachel is a divine force, right? Rachel is Shekhinah. So the fact that Shekhinah won't let go of Jacob, well, isn't that what was just celebrated a paragraph or so before? This circle of desire and love, this circle of arousal back and forth, right? That Rachel, is the light that has no light of her own. She's the one who therefore is so devoted to the source of light, who is Jacob, that why should she ever want to let him go? Of course not. So there's a lot of legitimacy to that. But then there's this paradox, because Leah is also the mother of the world. But Leah is at a disadvantage, right? Jacob is so besotted with Rachel. We've had this before. She's the one who is beautiful to him. She's the one who is so attractive. Leah is the concealed one. Back to this idea of concealment, that she's the one that Jacob doesn't have a clue about. He doesn't really get her. And yet she is, in some sense, a higher instantiation of divinity, right? She is above Rachel's standing. But she can't get in a word edgewise, because Rachel is holding on to Jacob literally for dear life. So what we have is this, this deal making, but it's actually God struggling with finding a window of opportunity. How do I get that higher level to come back into here? If once I've created this love bond between Jacob and Rachel, then Leah is out in the cold. How can she get back in? How can she do what she's supposed to do? Because Rachel is not going to be able to make a Yisachar. That kind of pure, just unstoppable devotion to Torah, that can only come out of Leah. So how do I break Rachel's hold, that exclusive hold that she keeps on having, that she keeps, talk about a magic spell. It's not the mandrakes that have the magic spell. Rachel has this control over Jacob. In come the mandrakes, right? So the mandrakes that Rachel thinks are for her benefit, if she can get them. Hold on a second, I gotta let Kasha out of the room. Rachel thinks that getting the mandrakes is all for her good, and now it turns out to be the opposite, right? It's a deflection. It enables Leah to come back into the picture, right? So the mandrakes are this little nothing item in the world, and the reflection of the upper realm that the mandrakes have here, it's not like a one-to-one correspondence. Okay, mandrakes look like little people, so therefore they must be like Adam Kadmon or something like that. We could make it kind of like some kind of generic, superficial one-to-one correspondence. No, things are in this world not because of some kind of obvious physical similarity that they may have to something. For some mysterious reason, they will eventually play their role in the upper picture of how reality is supposed to unfold. And that's what's happening here with the mandrakes. All right, so the mandrakes, therefore, we have from the Song of Songs, Hadudaim natnu reach, that the mandrakes issue forth a sweet smell. Okay, and what is that sweet smell? The sweet smell of Torah. Right. So by indirection, the mandrakes end up being the instruments of getting the Torah out into the world. Right. Not because the mandrakes are some kind of like, obvious symbol of Torah, but because they were able to be whatever they were to deflect and allow an opening. Okay. So they usher Yisachar into the world, and therefore that's the fragrance. Okay. It is also written.
It is also written, he lay with her in the night. Who? He. Who? Precisely.
He. Right, that's right. Okay. So, Vayishkavita balayla hu. The Hebrew is a little bit unusual. It should say, the note points it out, it should have said balayla ha-hu. Ha-hu. But it doesn't say that. It says balayla hu. So the simple understanding is he slept with her that night. But now the way the Zohar reads it is he slept with her in the night. He. The word who in Hebrew is masculine, third person. Okay, so what does that mean? Who precisely?
Who precisely, as has been established. It was the supernal world, concealed, unrevealed. For look, Torah emerged from the supernal world, universally who, and Ishkahar was linked to it. So we call it tree of life, tree of that supernal life called who. He, not ata, you.
Okay, so let's start from the notes, 420.
Who, he, who, precisely the supernal world. This description of Jacob's union with Leah is usually understood. He lay with her that night. However, the wording
Balayla hu.
Balayla, in that night is strange. One would expect Balayla,
Ha-hu.
Ahu. Rabbi Yitzhak reads the phrase hyperliterally, in the night, who, he. This pronoun refers to Binah, who was symbolized by Leah and facilitated the union that engendered Issachar.
Okay, and then, so Torah emerged from the supernal world.
Okay.
Torah emerged from that higher level, and that level is Leah. What is the force of using that term who? So first of all, we have a little bit of a strange thing if we know Hebrew a little bit. Who is masculine, right? Leah is not masculine. Binah is not masculine, but it doesn't matter. Going back to some other things that I've been talking about lately. What we have here is what the Zohar insists on. We had it earlier. That's where it says, see above, note 344. So that's like, 80 notes back. That who, as opposed to ata. Who is third person? Ata is second person, right? Ata is direct address, and who is, I don't know what the term is for it, right? Say that again.
Third person?
Well, I said third person, but a direct address and some other kind of address, right? So third person means that they're not here. They're there, right? Somebody over there somewhere. Not immediately present. Shechina is immediately present. Shechina is addressed as ata, you. Even though it's masculine, it applies to whoever it is that is directly present. Shechina. We talked about this back then. Our blessings are built on this dichotomy. We start with direct address, Baruch Atah Hashem, right? You abound in blessings, Eternal One, right? Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvotav, who, which third person, sanctified us with His commandments, right? Third person, right? And commanded us to do X, Y, Z. So we start the blessing direct address, and then we talk about something beyond that's not directly in front of us. And that's God's dual nature, right? We can feel an impact of God's presence before us, but that impact is just a partial, little sliver of the presence. The rest of that presence is way beyond us. Way beyond us. And one way to talk about it in human consciousness is Len Ganuz, right? Hidden away, stashed away someplace that's hard to access. So that's the who. To talk about God in that third person as I know about God, but I'm not interacting directly with that aspect of God because that's so way beyond me. So even though it's a masculine term, it can apply equally to any female persona that is applied to those higher realms. So Binah, the Ima Ilah, the supernal mother, is called who? Because it just means that far away concept that's so hard for us to grasp. Leah is called who? Leah, even though she's Leah, and she's a mother, and she's going to, conceive and give birth to a child, to Yisachar, she is called he, right? She is called masculine because she is recondite, she is secret, she's concealed. Jacob has hardly any clue of who he's interacting with when he sleeps with her. He sleeps with her because why? Because Rachel said so. Right? So he does what he's told. But he doesn't even have an understanding fully of what he's involved in. So this is stuff that the Zohar discussed quite extensively. So that's what happened here. What happened here is, in order for God to unleash the pure love of Torah, he has to make a fool of Jacob and Rachel, and to a certain extent Leah. And he has to play with them and he has to manipulate them to get them to do what they think they're going to accomplish in order for them actually to accomplish what God wants them to accomplish. So we'll stop here. Next week, I'm going to be away, so we're not going to have a session. By the way, also for Parshat HaShavua, I'm not going to be around. So next week, there won't be any Torah study either. And hopefully we'll be able to resume the week after that. Okay.
Stay safe, everybody.